Hello, everybody. I will be sharing my screen. Hopefully you can see it. Unfortunately, when I hit slideshow, it stops my screen sharing and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So we're just gonna have to do it this way. This is my presentation on racial justice and the case of Loving v. Virginia by Desi Infante. That's me. Let's proceed. This is my introduction. The case of Loving v. Virginia is a historical landmark that changed a lot of lives, as well as changing history during the American Civil Rights era. During 1967, the United States Supreme Court overturned laws that banned interracial relationships and marriages, stating that race isn't and shouldn't be a factor in relationships and marriages. Loving v. Virginia also helped fight against missegregation laws, which is believed to be the real reason on why interracial relationships were banned. That's Mildred and Richard. She's on the left, he's on the right. You can tell. The introduction continued. In the case of Loving v. Virginia, which surrounded dear Mildred and Richard Loving, she was a colored woman and he was a white man, and they faced a lot of long and really rough legal battles that surrounded their marriage and their fight for love. Their fight, strength, and victory struck hope in a lot of people and pushed forward the fight for equality, not just for interracial marriages, but for a lot of other different things as well. While this case did show the success that the fight for equality, like what it can bring, there's still a lot that can be done in today's society, which was, that was a long time ago, but there's still a lot that can be done. Some background. In 1958, Richard Loving, he was a Caucasian man, and Mildred was of African American descent. They got married in Washington, D.C., and they lived in Virginia, but they got married in Washington, D.C. because they weren't allowed to marry in Virginia, but they were from Virginia and they called that home. They had 3 kids there, they lived there, but the state of Virginia didn't recognize their marriage because of the Racial Integrity Act of 1924, which didn't allow for interracial marriages. But the couple was arrested and given a choice to either leave Virginia for 25 years or to go to jail. So they moved out of Virginia, but they, brought up their case, and in 1967, their case made it to the Supreme Court, and the court unanimously ruled that the laws banning interracial marriages were unconstitutional and that it violated the 14th Amendment and 14th Amendment's clauses for equal protection and due process. Background continued. This case is a landmark in the fight for equality and justice, dismantling a significant part of the legal framework of Jim Crow laws, which were laws mandating racial segregation everywhere in the United States. And it stated that if the right to marry is a fundamental right, then it must be conceded that an infringement on that right by means of racial segregation is an unlawful infringement of one's liberty. And that was stated by Justice Jesse Carter in 1948. In the case of Perez v. Sharp, which was like well before the case of Loving v. Virginia, but it just showed how long the fight for interracial marriages have been going on. Mildred stated after winning Loving v. Virginia, she states that I am proud that Richard and my name are on the court case, that I can help reinforce the love, the commitment, the fairness, and the family that so many people, Black or white, young or old, gay or straight, seek in life. I support the freedom to marry for all. That is what loving and loving are all about. Some of the research slides I have. The Loving v. the Virginia case was a challenge to centuries of American laws banning missegregation, which was any marriage or interbreeding among different races. So they couldn't have kids together, they didn't want them to marry, and that was all because they didn't want them breeding with each other, basically. But the case of Loving v. Virginia sparked uproar on both sides of the fence. On one hand, supporters of anti-missegregation laws argued and fought that the laws were necessary to uphold societal norms and racial purity. They believed that Racial mixing was unnatural and would lead to the deterioration of society and the superior race, which is white people. White people were considered superior, Black people were considered inferior, less than, or still are really, but these laws worked primarily to promote and preserve white supremacy, particularly the superiority of the white race when compared to that of Black people. The people in favor of keeping these kinds of laws said that the Black race was inferior to the white race, and that if they were to mix, they would ruin the pure white genes. Continue. Research continued. The laws that were in place before states that punishment for a marriage, if any white person intermarry with a colored person, or any colored person intermarry with a white person, he shall be guilty of a felony and shall be punished by confinement in the penitentiary. Give me 1 second, sorry. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I had to pause it really quickly because my computer was dead, but okay, so sorry. I'm just gonna restart. The laws that were in place before stated that punishment for marriage, if any white person intermarry with a colored person, or any colored person intermarry with a white person, he shall be guilty of a felony and shall be punished by confinement in the penitentiary. And then on the other hand, the people opposing these kinds of laws, like segregation laws and things like that, argued that the right to marry is a fundamental human right, and any infringement based on racial restrictions is a violation of one's liberty. They believed that anti-misegregation laws were a form of racial discrimination and a clear violation of the 14th Amendment's equal protection and due process clauses. Eugenics promoted the idea that the preferred group, which are white people, were in danger of having their ostensibly superior genes weakened by the inferior and socially undesirable traits found in racial minorities, disabled people, and social deviants. Black people were looked at as being stupid, lazy, and overall just completely less than to the white race, which is the superior race. And the case also raised several different problems, particularly concerning the role of the state in regulating personal relationships and the extent to which societal norms should influence lawmaking. So they were worried, like, the state doesn't know what's going on behind closed doors. How are they going to enforce those things? And obviously, like, Mildred and Richard had been married for a while, had 3 kids, so like Virginia didn't know either. So like, how would they regulate these relationships? As well as like, how much should people influence laws? Like, just because people in the South or whatever thought that, interbreeding wasn't okay and they didn't think interracial marriages were okay, that they shouldn't be the ones influencing these laws. And then the controversy, of course, didn't end with the ruling and decision of the Supreme Court in the case of Loving v. Virginia, but it sparked a lot of debates about racial equality, individual rights, and the role, again, of the state in regulating people's personal lives. Some more research. Despite the progress made since Loving v. in the Virginia case, the issues it raised continue to resonate in today's society with the aftermath of segregation and discrimination and things that people of color face, like police brutality and systemic racism and just racism in general. And in the end, the Supreme Court's unanimous ruling in favor of the Lovings seemed to promote a victory for those advocating for racial equality and individual liberty. So like people fighting for gender equality, people fighting for to marry whoever they want, whether they're gay, straight, trans, non-binary, anything like that. That's still like an ongoing fight. But the fight for racial equality and individual liberty is ongoing, as there is so much more that needs to be done in ensuring equality and liberty for everybody. The Loving v. the Virginia case serves as a reminder of the power of individuals to challenge and change laws that are unjust and contribute to the ongoing pursuit of equality and justice for all. My conclusion states that the Loving v. Virginia case was a landmark case that not only ended the interracial ban on marriage, but it also reaffirmed the principles that laws based on racial discrimination are unconstitutional. It also shows us that the fight for equality illustrates significant social change and that everybody should strive for equality in all aspects of life, not just racial equality. But it also underscores the role of the judiciary in guarding our rights, telling us that we should always hold our government accountable. So, when we vote, when we can impeach, when, even our local elections, or if we don't find something, that we like, we can always change those things if we all come together to change those things. But this is my references if you want to take a gander. But thank you for watching my presentation on racial justice and the case of Loving v. Virginia, and I hope that you gain something from it, and have a nice day.